All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call this special meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Taylor.
Here.
Squire Gentry. Squire Garner.
Here.
Squire Carl. Here. Squire Downey.
Here.
Squire White.
Present.
Squire Gill.
Here.
Squire Gray.
I'd like to start off with the discussion of the Woodford County Frankfort, City of Frankfort Sewer Interlocal Agreement. And let me give everybody some information about that. Jordan, I think you can pull that document up for us. So you all will recall that in the last state budget that Woodford County was awarded $8.5 million for a sewer project in conjunction with the City of Frankfort to go from the Frankfort sewer connection in Franklin County down to Millville. This is a project that's been worked on for many years, and the legislature appropriated these funds to us, the fiscal court, to administer this project. I would preface that by saying that we have no other sewer agreements with any other entity. So City of Versailles, as you all know, runs sewer in our urban services boundary, and they don't have any projects in areas of the county where we connect. So there are no other sewer providers that we deal with either. So this is somewhat unique. It's also unique because it is a state appropriation. The state is funding this project through the City of Frankfort and Woodford County. So we have been working with the City of Frankfort, Mayor Lane Wilkerson, and their City Commission very closely. And what I've learned is, and I want to make sure the fiscal court understands this, this is their wheelhouse, literally. They do sewer, they provide sewer, they run sewer all across Franklin County and all in the city areas of Frankfort. So in our due diligence in getting all of this ready, working with the Bluegrass Ad, you all will recall that we have partnered with the Bluegrass Ad for the administration of these funds. Frankfort is essentially going to take this project over for us. It's their project. We're essentially allowing it to happen to serve our area. It is the most, the closest in proximity to us, Frankfort is, as far as sewer service. For example, Versailles would not be anywhere near to be able to serve this area with sewer. So it makes a lot of sense. But Frankfort is going to essentially do this project with our interlocal agreement, with our blessing, with our support, with Bluegrass Ads administration. I say that to say that this is not a Woodford County project, right? We are not the lead. We don't run sewer. We don't manage a utility. So the interlocal, I'm going to go through the summary that I provided you all with the basic understanding. So number one, we're the recipient of the $8.5 million legislative appropriation, which comes to us in the form of a grant, a lot like Kentucky Infrastructure Authority grants, which we have dealt with, mainly with water projects. And this is to support wastewater or sewer. We contracted with the Bluegrass Area Development District to manage the disbursement of the funds. That's because we have never administered a sewer project, so we wanted somebody familiar with doing that. We will be responsible for paying Frankfort's technical review fees. The main key there is that any fees that we pay will be out of the state appropriated funds, out of the grant funds. I worked with the mayor of Frankfort and their city commission to include an important clause in this interlocal agreement that neither Woodford County nor the city of Frankfort will be responsible for overages on the project. Like all projects, there is a lot of unknowns here. This could be a very expensive project. Basically, we are saying in this interlocal that the fiscal court and the city commission will agree that if the state funds can't pay for it, we're not going to pay for it. I have been in touch with our senator, Amanda Mays Bledsoe, who was instrumental in getting these funds. And we talked about the possibility of maybe needing an additional appropriation in next year's budget. But either way, the protection for the fiscal court and the Woodford County taxpayer is any of the overages on the project or any of the costs of the project will be paid out of the appropriated grant funds. So again, if the project goes over, it will require additional state funding, and the project could either be paused or even terminated if there's not enough funds to do it. The county is required to provide all necessary access to support Frankfurt for its service requirements, meaning helping them get rights of ways and easements. They will negotiate the easements. They will do condemnation if applicable. That's not something we would do. As far as enforcement, Woodford County Health Department would be required to enforce the mandatory connections for the sanitary sewer lines and all the other enforcement that is required of sanitary sewer. So I've had, as the chair of the Board of Health, and Squire Carl, and before that Squire Gill served on the Board of Health. They don't have a lot of these responsibilities now, but in talking to Cassie and Barrett at the Health Department, that would be no problem at all. We would also share information through GIS and mapping and the PVA's office for them to get their property lines and identify owners and properties that they would need to work with. And then you all see the termination clause that we have to make sure that everything is moving forward, but if there's something that is deemed invalid, then the agreement has the termination clause in there for us. And then I've provided the responsibility for the city of Frankfurt, basically a summary of that, which is that they operate the sanitary sewer facilities, the treatment, the disposal, for all the residents and businesses in the designated service area, and that area is been set forth as an attachment or exhibit to the interlocal. Frankfurt Sewer Department will administer the agreement. They'll maintain all necessary equipment and services to operate the wastewater systems, and they will do that to the same standards as they do in their entire system. So one thing that I want folks to know is this isn't Woodford County adopting a sewer system and taking Frankfurt's rules, and their rules are in their ordinance. It's the opposite. This is Woodford County allowing Frankfurt to serve, and the only way that they will serve is under their own ordinance and rules. So we don't have any say. We can't say, well, we don't like this provision of your ordinance or that provision of the ordinance. It's either Frankfurt serves it or they don't. And so I think that in my review of their ordinances, they're very, very standard. They're very straightforward. I've talked to the city of Versailles who does sewer, and they handle things very similarly. And they're also under the same statutory requirements as well. Frankfurt will collect sanitary sewer service fees from the customers in the service-based area based on its schedule of rates, and that could be higher in the Woodford County portion of Frankfurt Sewer than in the city of Frankfurt, because that's what they do. Outside of the city limits, the service costs are higher. Frankfurt is responsible for billing, collecting all fees, new connection, capacity charges, and wastewater applications. They will manage the design and the construction of extending the service to the Millville area. They'll fund the permits. They'll administer the industrial pretreatment program for the industry, which is Castle and Key essentially for Woodford County that connects the sewer system. And all of the wastewater facilities located in the public easements in the right-of-way of the service area will be Frankfurt's. They own it. And so that's one of the benefits that the state grant and appropriation will do for them is they get new wastewater infrastructure. So that's the summary of the interlocal agreement. The Frankfurt City Commission met last night. They approved a resolution authorizing their mayor to sign the interlocal. They approved the interlocal agreement, and they approved everything that is related to that. So, that being the case, it is now for us to approve. This is the first step in order to move the project down the line. So, I'd open up the floor for questions about the sewer project from the fiscal court. Squire Gentry, sir.
Yeah, under the enforcement, it says that we, Woodford County and the Woodford County Health Department are responsible for enforcing mandatory connections to the sanitary sewer lines where service is available. Does this mean that the residents have to tie into it?
If it is in the service area, the residents would have to tie into it, yes. And that, Squire Gentry, that is based on Frankfort's ordinance. If they run sewer past a residence, then their ordinance requires everyone along that route to tie in. And so, in order for them to run service, it has to operate by virtue of their ordinances, and that's their ordinance. Squire Gentry?
I'm pretty sure some of these people down here do not want the sewer, city sewer. It'll be another expenditure for them, because you know that every now and again you have to have your septic pumped. But the sewer bill is every month, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty high. So for that, I'm in disagreement with it.
Well, the one thing that I would say, Squire Gentry, is that in my understanding from the city of Versailles and other sewer providers is it's standard. It's if sewer is in your area, you pretty much have to tie on. And the only reason I say that is because if this was out of the ordinary, then I think we'd have some say in it, but it's not. If Frankfort sewer comes to a location, then their rules have to be implemented in order for them to serve that area. Other questions or comments? Squire Brown.
If they run the sewer and they already got their water, and I was always told for sales, used to be you'd have your sewer and your water wasn't in with that, but they put it together and they made it higher. So will they get to keep their water without have to run their water through the sewer and just their bathroom?
Yes.
Because that's the biggest cost when you put them together. You're paying for all that water going through the sewer.
Yes, Squire Brown, that the water for that area will still be run by the Frankfort Plant Board,
Yeah, that'll help you there a bunch.
and the sewer will be run by the city of Frankfort.
Yeah, that'll help a bunch. Then plus you'll have cleaner water down there if you can talk them into it.
Oh, I definitely
Yeah.
understand the need
Yeah.
for it down there.
But I don't think it'd be as high as you think it'll be, because the sales is high when they put them together. So I believe you might be all right. They might want it.
The one thing that I think is a potential for this project is that it will not impact as many residents as they have initially identified, because I think that the $8.5 million won't go as far as initially thought. 2 years ago, $8.5 million goes farther than it will today. So I'm not saying, Squire Gentry, that there won't be residents that will be impacted that will be required to tap on, but I do think that there will be less residents as a whole. Now, there is discussion of Woodford Reserve having interest in connecting to this, which would connect it from essentially down Duncan Road all the way to Woodford Reserve. But I would say that right now that is an idea, that is a concept, that is nothing in reality or stone, and it would have to be paid for by Woodford Reserve, which would be a large cost.
That'd be pretty far piece.
It would be. Other questions or comments regarding the interlocal? then what we would need to do is, we would need to approve the interlocal. We would need to approve a resolution authorizing me to sign the interlocal and approve any and all other documents related thereto. So I would request a motion of the fiscal court to approve the interlocal agreement between the city of Frankfort for the sewer project for the Millville area.
I make motion.
Motion by Squire Downey.
I second it.
Second by Squire Brown. I'd open up the floor for any discussion. And, you know, I totally understand anybody's desire to express their opinions and vote on this, but this vote is the seminal vote that starts this process. It is not the last vote of this process. But in order for it to move forward, we would have to have this vote be successful tonight. And if it is not successful, then we are essentially saying that we did not want the $8.5 million grant to come to us, which I don't believe is the case. But if you have reservations, I'd welcome you to share those right now.
My vote will reflect the need for cleaner water, but I still feel for the people that have to tie in that don't want to tie in.
And one thing that I have told both the senator and the city of Frankfort is that if we have any funds related to this project, it would be to support our citizens connecting to the sewer line. That could be an area where the fiscal court could potentially provide some level of funding, but we would not fund any of the other infrastructure. And I think that's something that once this project moves forward and moves down the line, that's something that I think the fiscal court should look at is easing the transition from septic to sewer if it's becomes a reality. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Mr. County Attorney?
Judge, I don't mean to interject myself, but I guess I am. Squire Gentry, I fully understand your point, and there's a big part of me that agrees with that. I would liken this, though, way back when we went countywide garbage pickup and made that mandatory, and there was a lot of opposition. Well, I don't know about a lot, but there was some opposition on the same principles that you raised. That seems to have settled into a non-issue and I would hope if the court does go down this path, that would eventually become a non-issue too. So maybe not completely analogous, but we have gone through this before, and where there was a concern that it's being forced upon some people who may not have wanted it, but it does seem to have worked out. And the other thing I would say, and Judge and I talked about this when we pre-met, I've sat in this corner and heard about getting water to that area for through many different fiscal courts. This is probably as close as this court has come to any court has come to achieving that. So again, I understand and agree with the concern over mandating upon some of our citizenry, but we have done that before. Okay.
And thank you, Mr. County Attorney. And I would also add that, you know, we should also express these concerns to our state elected officials, our representative and our senator, because in my due diligence on this interlocal, there's not a sewer entity in Kentucky that would extend you sewer and let no one attach to it. That's just not how it works. If it worked differently and we could negotiate that, if there's something the county could do, if there's something this fiscal court could do, we would do it. But that's not how sewer service works, and therefore, we should talk to our state elected officials to help us potentially navigate that with our citizens who won't be pleased by that. But at the same time, I think we do have the ability, if we want to maybe help with those connections, so that the initial burden is not something that they feel is forced upon them. That would be my recommendation, is we look to appropriate some funds to support the connections, which will ultimately keep septic and sewer out of Glens Creek, help folks like the Stave and Glens Creek Distilling and Castle and Key be more viable. And, but I do understand your point, Squire Gentry, and I think it's important to represent your constituents. But we couldn't, I don't believe we could run sewer to the area without requiring people to attach. Other comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the interlocal, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We also have the resolution. It's a simple resolution that authorizes me to sign the interlocal agreement, which is a requirement of the Secretary of State's office, which the interlocal agreement will be recorded therewith. That's resolution number 2025-28. 08. 2508. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution 2508? Motion by Squire Blackford.
Second.
Second by Squire Gentry. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Finally, I need the authority by a vote of the fiscal court to authorize me to sign any and all documents related thereto, related to the interlocal agreement. Is there a motion for same? Motion by Squire Brown, second by Squire Varner. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. All right, I appreciate the court's work on that interlocal. We'll get some more information to the court on the next steps in the process. Speaking of next steps in the process, we are moving on to the USDA NRCS agreement that is before the court. Director Chandler, call you to the podium. So we have received the grant and the agreement. And so you all will recall that we took two separate votes authorizing the signing of this document upon the approval of the county attorney and myself. But seeing as we received it at the end of last week, instead of operating on those votes, we're going to present it to the court and then move it forward. So Director Chandler, I will turn it over to you to discuss this document with the court.
Judge, I'll start off by saying this is a very large number, and it's going to take a lot of hands to administer this if the court gives us permission to execute this agreement. We've been talking a lot about the number of homes that were damaged along the river. We have done buyout programs before through FEMA's hazard mitigation program. The high level objective of this USDA grant is very similar to hazard mitigation. The nuts and bolts are a little bit different though. So it's new territory for all of us. The treasurer and I met on some of the questions that she has. I think she's got some questions that'll roll up to DLG to get some clarifications. All that to say, if we were to do 100% of the work that the USDA has provided for in this grant, it would be a total of $12,295,283.44. That is a 75-25 cost share, so 75% federal, 25% local. We did not budget for that much in our property acquisition in the general fund, but we may not also buy that many properties. if history shares anything, the number of folks that are interested is far greater than the folks that go through it. The last property acquisition project we did we only proceeded with about a third of those that started off. So I don't know if this will be different. That's the only historical reference that we really have. In addition to the $12 million for the total of the projects, there's $695,959.44 in management costs. So that's our county employee staff time. That is contracted services for the real estate due diligence process, ordering appraisals, establishing that fair market value, the costs that aren't associated with the actual property acquisition. So there's money to be made here in the sense that we're paying people to do this above and beyond their additional duties, or at least that opportunity is there. Or we could hire some help from an outside firm if we choose to do so. I think it's kind of early. The scope is extremely limited to, again, at a high level, the acquisition of the properties that are qualified for this program that are in the floodplain, any environmental remediation, so that is demolition of the property, any contamination abatement, extraction of utilities like septic tanks and water lines and other things. So these properties that proceed with the program would have a permanent conservation easement, which in the long run means there's nobody there that can get flooded again. The initial agreement does not have a quantity of properties, but we had already submitted a list of those that we believe are interested or have communicated with the county that they are interested. And since we announced this on Friday, there have been several others come through the door that didn't know that this might be an option for them. So the reason I bring that up is the USDA, during the application part of this grant, they were very clear that we could add on additional properties. So this agreement could have some supplemental awards associated with it. And this volume of work is not going to be finished before the end of the fiscal year. So the first period of performance runs through next October, and any supplemental awards would push that date out further. Judge, I was trying to cover the key points. I'm not sure if the court might have any pointed questions that they like to ask, but I'll do my best.
Thank you, Director Chandler. So let me also mention that this program also provides a relocation assistance funds for a primary residence, which will give the individual $31,000. Or if they are a tenant, it's $7,200. That correct?
Yeah, that's not specifically spelled out in the agreement, but there is language in here about the relocation, even down to if it was a mobile home, that moving that and the utilities, or if a structure was a candidate to be relocated in addition to this other incentive. There's a lot of finer points that haven't come to light yet, and I think that's what the treasurer, because we were shared preliminarily that they would advance us some of the money, that it wouldn't be fully reimbursable. That way we would have some liquidity to go through the acquisition phase.
And Director Chandler, you mentioned, for example, we've envisioned, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we would envision that our capable road department would be responsible for demolition of properties, very likely removing things like septic systems, things like that. All of that work would be quantified as in kind, and it would go towards our 25%. So that doesn't mean that the nearly $3 million of local match is all in cash, is what I want to get the point across.
That's correct. That's correct. And there's not a firm timeline. We should be able to realize some economies of scale by doing demolitions in clusters instead of doing them like right after each closing. And so there's some efficiencies in that.
And Director Chandler, the other thing too is, so you mentioned that not everybody will take part even if they have expressed interest. I know that there are a couple properties at least that have changed hands. They showed interest in the buyout and then they've sold. So, you know, that's a few properties there that have changed their disposition. We are not required, if we enter into this agreement, to spend the total of $12.2 million, right? We can do as little or as much as we'd like throughout the program, so long as we, you know, for those properties that we engage in, we have to complete that process, obviously. We can't just say, oh, we're gonna do half of it. But the rest, we could just say, for our budget, for the expense, it's not something we feel that the county can bear, right?
That's correct. I think all the literature and our correspondence and conversations, we would do as much as we can up to the current limit that's in this document under consideration before you. We also haven't given up on the state providing some match as well.
That's right.
So there's, in corresponding with our counterparts across the border, they have found some state money that we are asking questions about. So there's a possibility that the local match would not end up being the 25%. It could be something less than that, which allows the Woodford County contribution to go further.
So I don't want to muddy the waters, but in Franklin County, for example, they have required that the homeowners and property owners being bought out bear some of the local match responsibility. Are you familiar with that? Can you share that with the court?
That's correct, Judge. There was and there were several reports that we had to get deconflicted ourselves because it was not, it was different than what was communicated to us by USDA's representatives. And initially, Franklin County was going to bring minimal resources to closing, which meant that they would deduct whatever part of their local match out of the closing. So if you think back to your last real estate transaction, there's a HUD 1. So there's the sale price and the closing costs, and then there's money taken off that would have been the local match portion. So I believe the state grant that they were able to leverage negated that almost in full, but Franklin County will, they'll have the same costs that we do just administering the funds. I do know that they have hired a firm to do the project management, which is also an option for us, but we're a little removed from having to make that decision quite yet until we have some of these other questions answered.
I will say that both in the county attorney's office, the county attorney and Phyllis and even Cassie Barnes and myself have some good working knowledge of real estate transactions and work that, at least on the legal end, we might be able to do things that they wouldn't be. Also, the scale of it's much larger in Franklin County, obviously. The other thing, I think this is something that we're going to have to work on, but we have to identify a criteria for the homes of what we would potentially look at buying out. And one thing that we've discussed, and I think it's up to the fiscal court to make this final decision, but what makes a property eligible? So a couple things that we would look at. For example, you all know that we've looked at properties that are in close and connected to or adjacent to our properties, Clifton Boat Ramp, other mitigation properties that we own, things like that, which would make it, for example, easier to mow, easier to maintain, or could even be used to incorporate into the Clifton Boat Ramp. one of the things I think that we should definitely look at as a top qualifying criteria would be that if they were impacted by the February flood and the April flood. That February flood was a relatively low water event, and if people were flooded in that event, that's going to continue to be I hope not a regular occurrence, but a semi-regular occurrence. The historic flood levels, obviously, many people were impacted by that, but that is much more rare of an instance. The February flood, if you had water in your living space, that is a good indicator that that property does not need to continue to be there without being elevated or protective or something changing.
Judge, we had also discussed about that the home was being used as a residence. There are several
Primary
properties
residence.
that fit that, being flooded in both events. But there was nobody occupying the structure at the time, or the structure might have been inhabitable to begin with prior to the flood.
Yes. So that is the initial discussion of the potential buyout program. I'd open it up for questions for the fiscal court. Squire Gill.
Thank you. It was my understanding that the federal government would set the criteria. So, but you're saying that we can set criteria to be eligible for the grant. Is that did I understand that correctly?
Yes, so the federal government, my understanding is all of the properties that have been submitted would meet the federal government's criteria, but we're gonna have a limited ability to purchase them all, so we need to figure out what is our priority. Kind of a first in, who will be bought out first?
Definitely, I think a better way to articulate that would be establishing our priorities. And nobody's going to know that better than us and the people that were affected by the floods itself.
That's right. And so we're discussing right now that, number one, a primary residence. We want to see people who are impacted in their living space. And if they were impacted by the February flood in a primary resident, that's going to be a pretty high priority. I think that's a real world example.
And Judge, those that are still displaced today that don't have long-term housing solutions should be even at the top of that list.
Yes. But I do believe that all of the properties that we have received information on would meet the federal government eligibility requirement to Squire Gill's question.
None that we submitted were excluded.
A good question. Other questions? Yes, Squire Downey.
Director Chandler, just for verification on the, I think it was roughly 660,000, 680,000 as a management fee associated with that. So that maybe we do need a outside firm as Frankfurt. I know that we're very early in that, but is that any items that you or your team or our courthouse team were to tackle internally, we could then bill for that time, much like the road department using their services as well. So that's something to draw down from, essentially.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
there's a cost for us to pay an invoice. There's a cost for us to hire the appraisal done by a qualified firm. So those would be allowable management costs, retasking people away from their normal duties to work on this grant.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Squire Downey. Other questions? In my review of everything, I think it's we're in a position to go ahead and move on this and obtain the authorization to execute this grant agreement and contract with the USDA. So we can either move forward with a approval, or we can always approve it contingent on the county attorney and my final review. But I believe we're prepared. Director Chandler, would you agree that we're prepared to implement the approval of the document?
Judge, with the suffering that occurred, participating in this program is the best option for many of our residents.
And I would also note that without the FEMA mitigation program, which was denied in the public assistance declaration from the federal government, this is our only option to buy out, to your point, at this point.
With federal assistance, yes.
Yes.
The court would be able to do property acquisitions free of any restrictions that the USDA would impose, using their money to supplement our own. But yes, right now, this is the only federally subsidized, partially subsidized program available.
All right. Well, I would entertain a motion to approve the USDA grant agreement and award and enter into the contract as presented.
Motion.
Squire Gentry, second by Squire Gill. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. That is I would also take a motion to authorize the judge executive to sign and execute any and all documents related to the agreement. Motion by Squire Gentry, second by Squire Taylor. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries unanimously. That is the total sum of business to come before the special meeting of this court. I appreciate everyone's indulgence and good work, and we will see you in 4 minutes. We are adjourned.